Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with the Empire, going to be taking the Crusade against the Wood Elves. So let's get to the army composition here. Of course, Archlector leading the way. He's got his book on his back, his dual-wielding hammers, cape flowing majestically in the wind. He's got the Grand Hammer of Sigmar and the Grand Shield of Faith. We've got two cannons, great cannons that is. I brought a Celestial Wizard, decided to forego healing since I have a relatively cheap and wide army. We've gone with this guy instead, so he's got Harmonic Convergence and Wind Blast for a nice cheap kit. Harmonic Convergence, of course, is going to be very good to use on state troops that are fighting Wood Elf infantry, and the Wind Blast is just good against pretty much everything the Wood Elves have that's on foot. So we've also got a couple of Reichsguard in the back, two Empire Knights on the left flank, and two more on the right flank. So lots of heavy cav, and yeah, front line of Spearmen with shields mixed with Swordsmen, with the Warrior Priest supporting, of course. For the Wood Elves, we've got a Glady up in the air, no surprise there. Eternal Guards with shields up front, couple of War Dancers to cut through Empire infantry, two Glade Guards with Hagbane tips, and a Way Watcher. Supporting, we've got a couple of Azrai Spear, two units of Glade Riders with Hagbane tips. And yeah, that's more or less it. So without further ado, let's get the battle underway. You can see the Glady moving forward, looking to potentially start skirmishing with like these cannons. The cannons are going to open up shots on the Glade Riders, try and take them out at a distance here. And if we can land some solid shots, they should do quite a bit of damage. You saw the Glady unleashing that Arrows of Kurnos there, actually blows up one of the cannons with her bow fire, but the great cannons do start to get fire on these Glade Riders. A couple of kills there. The ones on the other side are taking some fire as well, so far so good. We are drawing my opponent in as I intended. Nice, relatively combined arms. I guess I don't have any proper skirmishers, so I'm lacking that element of the army. But still, you know, nice combined Empire force here. Lots of heavy cav, of course. Heavy cav's very good against the Wood Elves, and just in general, because of their light infantry, they'll take a lot of shock damage if you charge them in the sides or rear. My opponent, though, taking some fire here, though he is doing a great job at keeping the poison applied to these Empire Knights so that their speed is debuffed. You can see these War Dancers with Azrai Spear unfortunately did take a bit of that poison as well. Otherwise, they'd be able to just about keep up with those Empire Knights while they're poisoned. So, interesting play there. The Way Watchers, though, getting some good fire in. You can see the frontline engagement is getting underway here. So the War Dancers charging in, doing some good damage initially, but then both the Reichsguard just going to charge directly into the War Dancers here. I'm also going to drop the Harmonic Convergence on these Swordsmen here. They've got the Hammer of Sigmar, of course, for the time being. Just going to be trading very efficiently with these much more expensive Winterheart Guards here. Meanwhile, we've got one cav netted down, being dragged down by the Azrai Spear. Another cav's trying to push through, but getting interrupted by the Glady. Meanwhile, over on this side, we have been able to get on one of the Glade Guards here with the Hagbane tips. But we are getting dragged down by just endless amounts of poison, and my opponent right on station with those Azrai Spear and some of these Eternal Guard as well, being pulled over to that position. The cannons, not sure exactly where they're targeted at this point. Looks like they're potentially still going after the Glade Riders there, trying to finish them off, which one unit's just about off the field. You can see over here, this unit of Empire Knights is routed, but the Reichsguard, having pushed through the front line there, just push right through those War Dancers, come back, and they're going to finally silence these Way Watchers, who've been doing a ton of damage up to this point. A very nice Penumbral Pendulum going off in the front line there. Must have not caught the Branch Wraith from my opponent. Very nice pick, of course. Just solid all-around caster, but yeah, in the back line here, getting these archers compromised is going to be really rough for the Wood Elves. You can see the balance of power hasn't gone too far out of their favor, though. Things still looking pretty close at this point, but big old buff coming down from Archlector, going to be buffing up both these units of Swordsmen, and suddenly, or sorry, the Swordsmen and the Spearmen, and suddenly, when you've got Spearmen with 46 melee attack, 42 melee defense, they're going to be trading, honestly, very effectively with the War Dancers, and looks like the Branch Wraith trying to drop some healing there as well, but with all the support from the Faith buffs, from the Harmonic Convergence, we've been dropping Wind Blasts at every opportunity as well, and now that the Heavy Cavalry's mostly dealt with the Archers, we can go ahead and use their mobility. The Prey of Anathrema is definitely a good ability, but it can only get one unit at a time, so because of the overwhelming amounts of cavalry here, they're just not able to pin everything down. And this is going to be a common issue you're going to have to deal with if you're playing Wood Elves against a lot of the cav-heavy factions, like the Empire, Bretonnia, even Vampires, High Elves, people like that. You know, heavy cavalry are definitely a risk. Arrows of Kurnus coming down, getting a few kills, good work done there, but I'm just doing everything I can to make sure these archers don't come back from routing. You can see the balance power now starting to turn. Both the cannons have been targeted on the lady, so we should be able to take her down. Infantry fight ended up being a little bit of a wash, if not a victory for the Empire, which because the Wood Elves invested pretty heavily in their infantry, they were definitely banking on winning there. You can see the Branch Wraith duking it out with the Archlector in the back line here. Yeah, those War Dancers actually get routed off by the state troops there, so I mean they were able to get some pretty good work done, but unfortunately just due to the buffs for the Empire, their state troops trading way above their weight class, able to do a ton of damage to the light elf troops. So fun battle. Is going to have a pretty lengthy cleanup phase as the cav come back, clean up the archers, then have to come back around here. You can see the Glady comes down, trying to fight in here, and we're going to be doing a little bit of friendly fire, but should be okay. Glady is actually like wavering despite her doing this fancy animation here, and the yeah, the friendly fire is pretty real at this point. But yeah, just trying to take the Glady down with everything. You can see the Celestial Wizard actually did get routed off there, but the Branch Wraith getting taken down and routed off. The Glady gonna probably looks like she was thinking about diving that cannon there, but instead pulling back, and the cav, all this Empire cav that we know and love, just coming back. Nice rear charge here from the, what are these, Empire Knights? Yep, right into the side of those War Dancers there, doing some nice shock damage. Once the War Dancers turn around, of course, they will just drag down the last of those Empire Knights, no problem, but actually it looks like state troops pushing through, the Archlector himself just coming in, just dual-wielding hammers, you know, clubbing those elf ladies and sending them for a ride. So, yeah, victory for the Empire. And fun battle, yeah, well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It was pretty decent overall. I mean, the Empire Knights didn't really get a lot of work done, but it's kind of like there's just so many of them that at the end of the day they're going to be effective. 6 units of heavy shock cavalry in general is pretty deep, but that's more or less what you can expect as the Wood Elves again when you're fighting these heavy cavalry factions. Yeah, it can be pretty tough to deal with. I mean, my opponent did a good job, honestly. Really, the Reichsguard were the only ones that ended up getting XP chevrons, and most of that came from face charging those War Dancers in the front line, which is, of course, a risk. You know, had my opponent maybe just switched up his deployment like at the last second, like as his army's advancing, you know, he sees me starting to advance as well, and you know, maybe switches the places or something, you know, tries to pull some kind of maneuver, maybe, you know, pull back with the War Dancers and try and interrupt with the Eternal Guard, something like that. Not really sure, but I mean, the Way Watchers did pretty decently. You can see they definitely got some work done. The Glade Guards, unfortunately, not quite as much. I mean, the Hagbane tips, I see what he was going for there, but because he already had the Hagbane tips on the Glade Riders, I really think that these would have been better suited as the Starfire shafts to give them the extra AP. That would allow them to do a lot more damage to the Empire Knights, because, again, you already have something else applying the poison. That's the main benefit of the Hagbane tips, so I do think that the Starfire shafts would have been more effective there. But in general, you know, heavy cavalry is pretty tough to deal with as the Wood Elves. They do have some tools to help control the battlefield. Of course, Prey of Anathrema is good, but the Glady herself, unless she's on a dragon, is going to have a hard time dealing with cavalry. The Eagle, of course, just doesn't cut it, and she's not going to do anything on foot or on a horse. So you'd have to bring her on the dragon for her to be able to really effectively deal with heavy cavalry, and the dragon is a bit risky against the Empire just because they have pretty strong missile units. So honestly, I think that this may be one of the few matchups where the Glady might not be the best pick. A lot of competitive players would probably disagree. Prey of Anathrema is just super strong, but I would postulate that you have some other control type tools that you can use to try and keep the heavy cavalry from just running rampant, and then bring a more damage focused lord who can punch back. Orion, in that aspect, is pretty strong. He's got anti-large AP. The Cloak of Isha makes him surprisingly tanky. He's got some other nice abilities as well. Of course, if you want to bring both of these, both pretty good against state troops. The Hounds of Orion are a little bit random, but the Hawk's Talon can give you some pretty consistent damage. And another aspect to Orion that I think is a little bit underrated is this Horn of the Wild Hunt here. You guys have seen me using this recently. The speed buff in particular is very, very strong. So something you can do is, for example, you grab a couple of Sisters of Thorn, and this is one of the alternate control tools I was talking about. These guys have poison missile damage. They actually have pretty heavy missile damage too, at 10 AP over 10 seconds, so a good third of their missile damage is AP, which means they can actually do a surprising amount of damage to enemy heavy cavalry. So you use them to skirmish out, try and draw the enemy heavy cavalry out, and then when they get into a position where they're vulnerable, of course they're already slowed from the poison, you can slow them additionally with the Curse of Onraher, so that they just really can't get away at all. And then you do something like charge in with some War Dancers. The War Dancers baseline have pretty good speed. The Regiment of Renown version even has this Loic Shroud ability where they can get 24% speed and stock, which is nice, but the speed buff in particular, it's not necessarily necessary, but just in general, once you've applied the 2 speed debuffs to the opposing heavy cavalry, you pop that Horn of the Wild Hunt, and suddenly these War Dancers are able to keep up with the heavy cavalry. They are actually fast enough to keep up with things like Empire Knights and Reichsguard. Whether it works on the faster heavy cavalry, like Dragon Princes, I haven't tried, but something like that, where you can kind of control them and make your War Dancers fast enough that they can keep up, because the War Dancers will get the damage done if you can keep the Empire Cav pinned down long enough that they don't just continuously cycle charge you. And so again, you use the Horn of the Wild Hunt. You can pop that Loic Shroud too if you bring the Loic Tricksters, and then combine that with Sisters of Thorn. I mean, the Curse of Onraher is really what pops this off. You can do the same thing with just Poison though, and Horn of the Wild Hunt. I think that would be enough, because from the battle, if I remember, they were down to 51 speed, and so the War Dancers are baseline 46. So yeah, with the Horn of the Wild Hunt, you'd probably just the poison and the horn be able to keep up with the enemy heavy cavalry, so something like that might work out okay. Obviously you would need a caster for this army, and if you're investing in some elite cavalry, elite-ish cavalry I guess, you're probably going to want some healing, so Spellsinger Lore of Life or the Branch Wraith, either one, but the Spellsinger is going to give you a lot more raw healing. And we'll put her on a horse just for some extra mobility. And then to pad out some extra numbers here, we are going to grab some Eternal Guards with shields. Winterheart Guard, not a bad idea here either. We don't have that many points left, so maybe some more Glade Riders, or maybe just some Starfire Shafts or something. I'm not really sure, but let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. What strategies do you like to use as the Wood Elves to try and shut down enemy heavy cavalry? You know, if you're fighting, let's say, Bretonnia, the Empire, vampires, you know, factions like that, how do you shut down the heavy shock cavalry? Because based on my experience both playing as the Wood Elves and against the Wood Elves, it seems to be their biggest weakness, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.